Today we are diving into Namelaka, where it comes from, how it behaves and how it compares to the other mousse preparation. And of course I'm going to show you how to make using 4 types of chocolate. The origin of Namelaka. Namelaka was created at l'école Valrhona with the chef Frédéric Bohr often credited for its development. The name comes from the Japanese and translate to smooth, creamy, velvety, which perfectly describe the texture. Valrhona chose a Japanese name because the technique was developed during the period when the school was deeply inspired by the Japanese pastry philosophy, precision, purity of flavor and ultra-refined textures. Japan has a long tradition of valuing mouthfeel as much as flavor, so the word captured the exact sensory experience they were aiming for. Namelaka was designed as a modern evolution of Ganache, something silkier, lighter and more versatile. Now about correct pronunciation. For Namelaka, Japanese doesn't have a true R or true L, but a single sound that sits between them, which is why the Namelaka is pronounced with that soft R flap. When Valrhona adopted the term, they chose the spelling Namelaka because French speakers hear that sounds closer to an L and the spelling looks softer and more elegant for branding. So the pastry world kept this L spelling even though the Japanese pronunciation leans toward an R, Namelaka. Now how you can use Namelaka. It can be used in 2 forms. Traditional Namelaka, used as is, it sets into a texture that's creamy like a custard, ultra smooth, glossy and pipeable, and soft on the spoon, yet still able to hold its shape in tarts, insert and entremet. Whipped Namelaka. After resting and chilling, Namelaka can be whipped. This transforms it into a light mousse similar in idea to the whipped Ganache, but with a lighter texture and more defined flavor because it has less fat and a higher water phase. You get mousse-like lightness without the heaviness of the classic Ganache-based whip. The science behind why Namelaka behaves this way. Namelaka's signature texture comes from the 3 mechanisms working together. High liquid ratio, more milk means a thinner emulsion and a silky mouthfeel. Gelatin stabilization. A tiny amount of gelatin gives elasticity without firmness. Cocoa butter crystallization. As the chocolate sets, the cocoa butter forms a stable network that keeps the cream smooth and glossy. I've been testing different variations of Namelaka and in my version I replaced milk with a light coconut cream, around 12% fat. It's slightly higher in fat than milk, but it behaves very differently. What changes when you replaced milk with the light coconut cream? In the fridge, the cream becomes firmer and more set because coconut fat solidifies more readily. In the mouth, it becomes lighter, faster melting and more flavor forward because coconut fat melts below body temperature. Texture shift from dairy creamy to silky light with a clean finish. Flavor shift more pronounced because coconut fat doesn't coat the palate the way milk fat does. Whipping logic. You still use thickened or whipping cream as the main whipping element, but the coconut cream addition makes the whole experience brighter, more aromatic and more interesting on the palate. Let's go through ingredients first. Platinum gelatin powder and cold water to create a gelatin mass. White chocolate. Choose the best chocolate you can find. 28 to 32% cocoa solids is ideal. Vanilla bean. Even half a bean gives intense flavor and beautiful seeds. Light coconut cream, around 12% fat, or replace with the coconut milk. Glucose syrup helps with the crystallization, but you can replace it with the honey. And thickened or pure cream need to be cold. Method. Combine gelatin powder and cold water and set aside for 5 to 10 minutes. Split the vanilla bean and scrape the seeds into a saucepan with the coconut cream, add in the pot as well. Bring it to a simmer, remove from the heat and let it stand for 10 minutes to infuse. Add the glucose and bring it back to a simmer and pour it over the chopped chocolate, removing the vanilla bean first. If you want to be precise, weigh the coconut cream after reheating. So I've lost approximately 10 grams of coconut cream, which I'm going to add to saucepan, reheat it and add to the chocolate. But as for now, I'm going to dilute the gelatin mass in hot cream and then pour it into the jug with the chocolate. Evaporation happened during the heating the cream. Blend with a stick blender to form an emulsion about 1 minute. Add the cold cream and blend again for another 30 seconds. Now choose your purpose. Fill the silicone mold or tart shell if you want a creamier style set. Refrigerate overnight for tarts or freeze completely if you are using it as an insert. Or pour it into a shallow container, press cling wrap directly onto the surface and refrigerate for 8 to 12 hours before whipping. That is my choice. Why Namelaka needs 8-12 hours to set? For Namelaka, the set time is always 8 to 12 hours, and there is a reason that it takes long. It doesn't behave like a ganache or a mousse that firms up quickly. Namelaka needs time for two separate structures to form. The gelatin needs a slow, cold maturation to build that elastic, custard-like texture, and the cocoa butter inside the chocolates need hours to fully crystallize and stabilize. These two processes happen gradually, not instantly, which is why an overnight rest is essential. Anything earlier will taste fine, but it won't have that true, silky, glossy, perfectly elastic Namelaka texture. For the milk chocolate Namelaka, it's very similar method, but it's going to be faster because I'm not going to use a vanilla bean. But instead, I'm going to use almond praline. I've made this at home and you will see the link on the screen how to make it at home, or you can find it in the store. Sometimes it's called almond spread. Choose the one that has less sugar and more almonds. So ideally 50% almond butter, 50% sugar. I'm going to heat the light coconut cream with some glucose. You can use honey as a substitute, or you can skip it, but it actually helps chocolate for this proper texture. You need to bring it to a simmer, then add almond praline and add the gelatin mass and pour it over your milk chocolate. Blitz with a stick blender up to 1 minute so you get a proper emulsion, then add cold cream and blitz again for extra 20 to 30 seconds. And put it in the fridge overnight. Same application as for any other Namelaka. You can use it as an insert, pour it into the silicone mold and freeze it. You can use it as a filling for the tart. You can just pour it into the baked tart shell and put it in the fridge overnight to stabilize, or just pour in a shallow container with a cling wrap, refrigerate for 8 to 12 hours and then fully whip it to assemble a tart, cake, or use it for the plated dessert. For the dark chocolate Namelaka, I'm going to use a coconut milk, not cream, so the texture would be light. And because I'm using the chocolate that is 72% cocoa solids, I'm going to reduce the gelatin mass, so the texture remains silkier, not too firm. But the method is same. Heat it up the coconut milk with a glucose syrup or use honey as a replacement. Bring it to a simmer and add the gelatin mass. Mix until dissolve and pour over the dark chocolate. Make an emulsion by blitzing with a stick blender for approximately 1 minute, then add the cold cream and blitz again for 30 seconds. I prefer not to incorporate air bubbles, so you need to put the stick blender under the angle, so any air trap under the blades will come out. Fruit-based Namelaka is a simple idea that opens up a huge amount of creativity in your own kitchen. You're just substituting coconut cream with a fruit puree, that's it. If you want your Namelaka to be flavor driven by fruits or berries, use a white chocolate base. If you want to enhance the chocolate flavor itself, go for raspberry, blackcurrant or cherry purees. They work best with a dark chocolate. And for milk chocolate, banana puree is a great match. The only difference in method when using purees is this: melt the chocolate before adding the puree. Fruit puree has a thicker consistency and won't melt the chocolate as efficiently as cream or milk. I'm going to show you this using caramelized white chocolate and mango puree. So let's go through the ingredients. Mango cubes, defrosted or fresh, mango liqueur, optional or substitute with more mango, glucose syrup, gelatin mass, sea salt, melted caramelized white chocolate, this one just from the grocery to show it works with everyday chocolate, and cold thickened cream. Method: combine mango and mango liqueur in a small saucepan, blitz with a stick blender, add glucose and bring it to a simmer. Now add the gelatin mass and stir to dissolve. Pour over the melted chocolate, add salt and blitz with a stick blender to form an emulsion. Add cold cream and blitz again to combine. Transfer to a shallow container and cover with a cling wrap touching the surface. Refrigerate for 8 to 12 hours before whipping.